Hello and welcome to the Bravas Luxury Living Podcast. In the Luxury Living Podcast, we explore ideas and themes that help people live the best technology life in their beautiful luxury homes. If this is the first time you found us, please don't forget to share and like, maybe even leave us a comment, so other people can find out what we're talking about, and you can share the ideas from the Luxury Living Podcast with them. Every week, I'm joined by a colleague of mine from Dallas. Hello, Keith. How are you, Keith Brown?
I'm doing fantastic, Nigel.
So, Keith, I'm going to let you introduce today's guest, as we're going to go outside, not literally but figuratively.
Yeah, I'm excited to introduce our two guests. So we have Michael Hench, who is with Coastal Source. They produce some of the nicest outdoor landscape lighting and outdoor audio products I've ever experienced. And then Joey with Moss Landscaping in Houston. And it's been 15 seconds since Joey told me how to pronounce his last name, so I'm going to let him do it.
Is Canahuati, Canahuati, Canahuati.
Thank you for saving me from getting that wrong.
No,
But let's just go ahead and start right at the beginning. Michael, tell me a little bit more about how you got to Coastal Source and how you ended up doing what you're doing.
Well, sure. Back about 40 years ago, I used to call on a client down in the Florida Keys that was a small design build firm called Design Source. And we never did a huge amount of business, but we always stayed friends. And in the early 2000s, this company started manufacturing their own line of landscape lighting and outdoor audio, because what they were currently selling for their estate properties was not holding up to the elements. And in 2012, they came to me and asked if I would help them build a national network, and I've pretty much been doing that ever since.
That's fantastic. We'll definitely need to talk more about that quality. I think that's something that is really important, especially when working outdoors. And Joey, tell us about your journey getting to Moss.
when I graduated from Texas A&M University with a landscape architect's degree and became a landscape architect shortly after that, I've been with Moss for about 20 years in the residential design build realm and been doing it ever since. So that's where I'm at now.
So, Joey, is someone starting to plan a project? Maybe they just have a blank slate of a yard, they're building a new home, they're thinking about remodeling what they have right now. What are some just big picture things that clients need to think about to make sure that they're going to get something that they want from you?
We think about everything outside. So we talk about driveways, we talk about landscape aesthetics, we talk about patios, pathways, access to the property, security. We talk about irrigation, we talk about drainage and lot coverages. We talk about detention because of flooding in Houston is a big deal. And we talk about planting. Then we discuss how they're going to use the space, whether or not they want pools, are they going to entertain a lot? Is that something that, is this going to be a weekend home, or is this somewhere they are going to live full time? You name it. Sometimes we have, do they like high maintenance projects? Do they want low maintenance? Are they water conservatives? Um, and do they have children? Do they have pets? What about security and the aspect of fencing? Who gets their trash? Is it something they bring out to the street? Does somebody come into their property to get the trash? Do they have housekeepers that stay there with them full time? So
Man, I
everything
knew you
involved
guys.
outside.
I
Do
I knew
they
you
want?
guys did a lot, but that's even more than I was expecting. On the specific like outdoor living spaces, because that's obviously the part we work on. I think that's the part clients get excited about. Um, what are you seeing people do now? Is it outdoor kitchens, kind of replicating indoor spaces outside? Is it just furniture around a pool? Like, what are you seeing people ask for?
Yeah, fireplaces. They have fireplaces. They have fire pits. Sometimes they want them gas plumbed or they want wood burning. They have summer kitchens that they entertain under, or they just have a grilling area because they like to barbecue. Barbecue's real popular here in Texas, so everybody's got a barbecue pit, whether it's a smoker or a gas grill. Sometimes both. There's the big type egg type things that they integrate in there. Then, how do you grill at night? How can you see your barbecue? Can you stand over your barbecue pit and see your meat while it's grilling? or have some vegetables on or something like that. That you need to be able to see what you're cooking. So that's real important to the aspect of cooking. You don't want to put a light behind your head and that shines a shadow down on top of where your grilling space is. You want the light to be directly over. And these are the things. And then we also have to think about smoke in the direction of where smoke is going. So we have prevailing winds from the southeast all the time in Houston. So we want to make sure that, how they're going to use that space outside. And the pool area's got, good ample room for layout and sun and shade. And how they want to entertain if they have small children, that how do we protect that space and keep them safe?
Yeah, I wish I'd talked to you before I built my patio because I have one light. It's directly behind me when I'm over my smoker. The smoker doesn't really fit with my furniture. There's not enough room for any of it. It is amazing how many things you guys have to think about. Michael, Coastal Source is obviously a luxury product. I'm sure you're seeing a lot of these spaces, just like Joey's describing. What are some things that really stand out to you? Just unique things you see in those spaces?
Well, sure. When we're talking to a client about lighting, one of the things we want to find out is how do they think they're going to be using the outdoor spaces? In other words, we might take a look at a plan or walk a property, and we might see a pool, we might see a pergola, we might even see something as crazy as an outdoor basketball court or a soccer field or a bocce ball court. So we want to learn how the clients plan to use those spaces. The other thing that we want to find out is what are some of the views that you might enjoy when you're inside the home? Because a lot of homes are focused with very nice windows that look out upon a backyard, a side yard, and those can be great spots. But what happens when it gets dark is all those things disappear. So with landscape lighting, you can bring that back to life. You can add depth and entertainment and enjoyment. One of the things that we ask the client is, and I think Joey mentioned this too, is there a security aspect? Is there a safety aspect? Lighting can help illuminate parts that are dangerous. Maybe there's a stone stepway down from one level to another, which you might not be able to see at night. Or you might want to illuminate the back of your property with hedges that are maybe a few hundred feet away from the house, so that you know what the perimeter of your home looks like. And of course, then there's entertainment and enjoyment. And one other thing is anything you do to bring enjoyment and entertainment to your home enhances the value of your home. The other thing is, to amplify on Joey's point, if a thief is driving down a street looking for a place to break into and 4 houses are completely dark, but one of them is lit, which house is he going to choose? Is he going to choose the lit house? Probably not. So that's another aspect of properly doing landscape lighting. Security, entertainment, enjoyment, property enhancement.
Yeah, I think one of the things you touched on that really stood out to me after I thought about it and then experienced it is how much it changes the inside of the home at night to have good landscape lighting. Is that one of the things you talk to your clients about, Joey, kind of as you're planning those projects?
Absolutely. Those are the extensions. That's what makes the interior look larger than what it is. So you can definitely expand the interior space outside. This is why it's real important to talk to the interior designer on the project, get their ideas, understand what their perspective is, because you don't want to create a space outside that's completely opposite of what's on the inside of the house. And a lot of times the interior designers have very good viewpoints and perspective of what they would like to see on the outside, and they have a vision. And we have to respect that vision and understand where they're coming from to, help them enhance that outside space, keep it within the same parameters of the inside to the outside, so we can blend the two easily, not only for use of space but for aesthetic purposes. Homes have arts, they have sculpture, they have it inside, they have it outside, they may be art collectors, and those are the things that we have to work with. And then the architects as well. The architects are involved in this process. So we have a team. We have a team of engineers, architects, interior designers, and the homeowners. And a lot of times the homeowners, bring this team together to build their homes for them.
Okay, so I'm going to play the cynical one here because I know you guys do quality work. So I'm going to ask you the sort of a context we get from inside outside. So whenever we go into a home and we say, let's spend a couple of grand putting a shade up, they can go, well, I can go to my local Shades R Us and get that for $500 or $200. And we always say the experience is completely different. I wonder if, for you guys, to start with Mike and then Joey, how do you explain to the client, how do you explain to customers who sort of watch this podcast why a good quality coastal source system is really a difference in their life, and they can't just buy a bunch of cheap Bluetooth speakers and throw them around the garden?
Well, that's a good segue. Talking specifically about audio, we're concerned about three things. One is, how good does it sound? Number two is, how long will it last? And three is, how easy is it to maintain and repair if necessary? So, using an example of outdoor TVs, you can get an outdoor TV by taking an indoor TV and putting it outdoors. And in a year or two, it's going to corrode, it's going to rust, it's going to be useless. So you can replace it after a year. Same thing goes with outdoor audio and also with landscape lighting. When you're considering making an investment in this, the question that you would want to answer is, do I want to pay a little bit more to get something that's going to hold up and perform well over time? Or do I want to get the cheapest thing I can find out there, and maybe I'll have to replace it in 6 months or a year?
Okay, but is it really easy to hear the difference? You see, what I worry about is clients saying to us, well, yeah, I get all of that stuff, but I'll never tell the difference. Can they really tell the difference between the good and the great here?
Well, the only way I can answer that question with audio is to tell you that we've done countless demos actually on client properties. Our dealer will bring us in and we'll play our products, and usually we get reactions such as, I can't believe that sounds so good. And that's what we strive to do. And unless you've heard it, you can't know how good it sounds. A lot of customers are familiar with a couple of speakers that would have been mounted, in the eave of their portico that maybe they spent a few $100s on. We're talking about something that's substantially more money, but once you see it and experience it and hear it, it's a world of difference. It's kind of like listening to a transistor radio versus going to a concert.
Right, so that means I'm going to get bass, I'm going to get treble, I'm going to get that experience that I would have got with a really expensive indoor system, but I get that outdoor, can't I?
Well, correct. In fact, our dealers and customers have told us that we bring high fidelity, high performance audio to the outdoors, and that's what we strive to do.
Yeah, we've installed coastal source systems for clients where they then go and upgrade their interior audio to match their exterior. I mean, I think that's the best praise you can give, is that their outdoor audio is so good they want to upgrade what they have indoors to match, because they go outside to listen to music now.
I'm embarrassed to say that that's what I do. Or maybe not so embarrassed.
So Joey, go on with Nigel's question about just the experience of doing something cheap versus doing it right. That holistic experience you're kind of explaining, like talking to the interior designer to make sure the interior aesthetic matches the exterior aesthetic, and all of those things you're thinking about. What are some of the most important things that you do, that Moss does as a company, that somebody's not going to get if they just kind of try and piecemeal a project themselves?
That's simple. We just all put it together in one package. So we coordinate not only from the design and the permitting and the HOA approvals and city regulations with detention and lot coverages and all the calculations involved in the planning. We also put, we pick out the stonework and we customize the stone, and then we create a series of plans that we know where the drainage is going to go versus where they want that tree to go. So it's all the underground stuff that the client doesn't see. That's really, really important. It's like building a family. You have to have a good foundation. And once you establish that good foundation, everything else will prosper from there. So that goes with good bedding, good drainage and bedding for the plants to grow. The underground utilities, which is including electrical, gas, low voltage lighting, all of that has to be pre-planned. Once you put that in the package deal and you know that you're going to put the tree that they want to see at whatever time of day or however you want that tree to grow, and you want to see that tree, flourish and not be cut by the utility companies in 10 years because it's next to some power wires, and you know that that tree can be planted there because where we designed it to go is next to a drain line, and that drain line is specifically put to the side so we can position that tree and then light it at night.
So
All of
I'm
that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I'm interested, Joey, about whether, when you put a proposal together, and some of these are fairly substantial, what's the place you think clients most want to go cheap? I'm guessing it's not on the swimming pool. When they look at your proposals, where do they wrongly ask to spend less money?
Lighting can get cut out pretty quick, but we try to get them a small lighting package put together, something to get their basics in. So if we have to do underground utility work like outdoor holiday light plugs, get those set up for them. Get the transformer put in. Get some photocells put in or hook it up to their automation. Then put in a few lights and see what happens. I guarantee it within 30 days after they're moved in, they're going to be adding more lights, and that system's going to be expandable. And I believe Coastal Source's system is pretty good at doing an expansion with their plug and play systems.
Well, actually, that is true, and we often suffer the same consequence where when something's looking to be cut, it can be the landscape lighting, and what we'll typically suggest is that the client just illuminate one particular area. And as Joey mentioned, once people see it, they usually ask to get more. And the way our system is designed, it's very, very easy to add something without having to go back and undo work that you've already done, which means additional labor. So we like that idea, and it happens very, very frequently where the client adds on. And we also design our systems to where we're not maxing out the electrical load so that should the client decide to add something, we're not stuck with, oh, gee, now we have to go add another transformer or we need to do this. So a lot of pre-planning goes into play with this.
Yeah, we've experienced the same thing from the practical side of selling and installing these systems is if somebody does want to value engineer and do fewer fixtures, we don't try and subtract them from the middle of a section. We just pull that whole section out, but we make sure we're powered for that larger install so that they can easily scale it. And one thing I'll mention, so Michael doesn't have to tell us how good it is, the plug and play system that Joey mentioned is one of the reasons we love Coastal Source. Like most of the failures we see with landscape lighting are either really cheap kind of plastic fixtures just falling apart when they get hit with a weed eater or something like that. And Coastal Source fixtures are heavy brass, I think brass fixtures. They're just really solid. I mean, the first time you touch them, you know that that's something different. But that plug and play system, the wires you run between fixtures are actually pre-made, finished in a factory wires that then pop together and screw tight. So they aren't going anywhere. They're not going to just randomly fail. And I can't tell you how many systems we've gone in behind to pull out where you pull up the wires and they're just corroded and filled with mud and the connectors have popped off. And when you kind of get all that put together, some of those lights start working again. And it's just a really frustrating experience that people that have had large homes or estates or a lot of landscape lighting, they already know how frustrating that is. And I love that we can just save people from that.
Well, to your point there, Keith, some of our best customers are customers that have experienced landscape lighting in the past and it's failed. So when we talk about our connection system and the reliability and durability of our fixtures, it's, they get that. And like it mentioned earlier, we're not trying to sell you something that lasts a season. We want it to last as long as you're in the house and beyond.
Yeah, I wonder, Joey, whether, the same sort of thing refers almost to landscaping, that people ask for things that don't make sense. Does that ever happen to you? Do you hear people go, what I really want here is a pergola here, and you go, oh no. Yeah. What's some of the crazy things you've got to ask for?
Oh, wow. Just about every project, we have some abnormalities that occur. We've seen it all. Mainly, the biggest thing is the challenge that we have is the lot coverage. Some municipality, we work in about 15 municipalities in the greater Houston area, believe it or not. So we have some villages, and we have some other areas of you know smaller cities within the city of Houston, and each one has their own set of rules. When a homeowner buys a lot and gets an architect to design their dream home, and they max out their capacities with just the house and the driveway, we can't exceed a certain percentage of lot coverage without either adding more detention in there or XYZ. So we have to tell the homeowner, like, you can't do that. And when you tell somebody that you can't do something, it almost offends them in a certain way. And we have to be, careful with that. So we have to go back to the architects and say, this is what they want to do. Is that possible? How can we downsize the house? How can we address these concerns? This is what they would like to do on the exterior. This is the pool size they want. This is how they want to put in their fireplaces and how they want to use their space outside. And this is how they want to get to their front door and how they want to park 5 cars on their driveway. And they have 3 kids to think about in 5 years that are going to be driving. So once we get all that worked out, then we can come back to the homeowner and say, okay, we've put together this package for you, and this is the best we can do, and this is what we're thinking about going forward. How do you think? And then we go through all the things we talked about here about where your trash receptacles are going to be stored, how this lighting is going to be on your property, how the fireplace is going to be positioned, where the pool is going to go, how are you going to use the outdoor kitchen area. And we give them those amenities. They might be downscaled somewhat to fit it all in that package, but we have to be creative in that world of giving the homeowner what they want.
When it sounds like it sounds like you guys apply your expertise to help the client. Like with my personal experience doing my patio, I basically said what I thought I wanted, and the guy just drew exactly what I said I wanted. And it was like, this is a perfect plan. And it turns out nothing really fit. It wasn't the right use of space. We couldn't center the table under the fan. It's all these things that no one told me I couldn't do or shouldn't do. And to me, that was the most frustrating part of the process was they essentially gave me exactly what I wanted, which it turns out was not at all what I wanted. They just didn't apply their expertise to explain why.
Yeah, and you have to put your neck out there sometimes and just say, hey, look, we can't do it like this, but here's some solutions to that situation. This is what we can provide. We can do it like this and change it like this and move it over this way. Give them some alternatives. We don't want to just say there's problems. We want to come up with solutions.
I always wonder whether there's ever too much you can do. I mean, I visited somebody's home where they had put a swimming pool in, and they'd put speakers in the swimming pool and speakers in the, everywhere. And I wondered whether speakers in the swimming pool maybe was the sign that they had too much money or not. But I'm always amazed by how people want this surrounding experience. And Mike, you must get that all the time.
Well, we do. A lot of times people think that more is more. And if we're asked to design a system, in this case we're talking about audio, we'll put in what we think is going to solve what the client wants based on their desires. Some people might just want to listen to background music. Other people might want to have it go like a disco and have, amazing sound pressure levels and heavy bass. So we take that into consideration when we're designing a system. We have had a few instances where the client wanted even more than what we requested. And we can make that work, but there does come a point in time where the system is great the way it is and you don't need more.
I also tell you one of the great experiences early on in my time with Bravas. One of the team showed me around a home actually in Dallas, where you could walk from one end of the home out onto the patio, down into their tennis courts and swimming pools and rose gardens, and there's like this stunning stereo sound, and it sort of followed you without it sounding bad. And my guess is that takes a bit of planning, both on sort of a coastal source side as well as a landscaper side, doesn't it?
Oh, it absolutely does. Fortunately, our speakers have very wide dispersion, so placement isn't as critical as with some. But when you're trying to cover an entire area, you certainly need to know what you're doing, and you have to have somebody who does understand the system, like Bravas, that can position the speakers where they need to go. We have a design team that can assist with any of those things, and part of what we call the client interview is to find out what their desires and wishes are, so that we can accommodate them. But what you just mentioned is very doable. It's just something that we would want to know about up front.
And I guess, Joey, you have to be in the middle of that as well, don't you? So you can lay the foundations for all of that.
Absolutely. They ask our opinion. Once you're involved in the project, your opinion counts towards everything. So, how do you sleeve for wiring for future runs after the hardscape gets poured? And do you put in two sleeves? And the sleeve is like a 4-inch pipe that goes underneath a concrete pathway or something, or underneath the pool patio or underneath the driveway, so that the electricians and the irrigators can come in and run their piping through those sleeves in the future once it's time for their phase to install the work. So if we have to come into the project and say, the idea is that, where the lighting's going to be, how they want to use a space at night and where they want to go with it and how far out they want to extend that atmosphere, the possibilities are endless. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to go out into a landscape and have that same music playing or have that ambience of the light and look, real estate's expensive. Every square foot counts. And so if we can utilize all that space and maximize the use of that space, they get that bang for their buck. And not only in their current use of it, but in future resale. So if they're showing it at night while they're in real estate, trying to sell the home, they'll be able to see every single inch of that property if it's at evening time. In the winter, it's darker earlier. So at 5 o'clock, 5:30, it starts to get dark. And, right now it's dark at 8:30 here in Houston. And so, to 9 o'clock, you're outside, and that's a wonderful time at night. We have mosquitoes to think about, mosquito control systems too. So.
Yeah, I think for all of these, for the landscape lighting, the landscape audio, and just what kind of space you want outdoors, like one of the best experiences our clients could have is honestly just going to their favorite resort, because that's the experience we're trying to build for them. That experience Nigel described of just walking around a property and having that perfect level of audio throughout the entire space, like that's what happens at a really high end resort. And I think people just assume that their home is never going to be that, and they lower their expectations for things like what kind of audio I would want. Because the first time I heard about landscape audio, I thought, well, what's wrong with the speakers on the patio? Those sound great, until your kids are in the pool and they want to hear the music and you're trying to have a conversation on the patio and the music's too loud. It's like until you really experience it, you just assume that the status quo is good enough. But that experience that Nigel described, I think, is like the type of experience we're trying to give clients in every part of their outdoor space. It's just that it's exactly the way it should be, even if you didn't think that was an option for you.
So I wonder whether each of you, because I live in an apartment on a high floor, so my outdoor living space is dangerous to go to. But I think all three of you have sort of outdoor living spaces. What are the 2 or 3 things that each of you most likes about what you have? That if someone would say to you, "Oh, I'm going to do one," you'd say, "Well, let me tell you what I did." So, Mike, what's the 2 or 3 things you most like about your outdoor living space?
Well, that's interesting you bring that up. We recently moved into a new house a few years ago. It's going on 3 years now. And I wanted an outdoor kitchen. And I've got an area where I've got my outdoor kitchen. I've got a big table. I've lit up the landscape so that when I'm sitting at the table, I can enjoy it at night from where I sit. And I have outdoor audio, and I can dial up, whatever I want, rock and roll, background music, you name it. So being able to bring the ability to do my cooking, sit outside, have a drink, and enjoy the ambience of my patio space and listen to good music is just great for me.
Okay, Joe, what about you? What's the top things you have in yours, do you think?
I love the interaction between the front yard and the backyard. So combining the two spaces, whether or not I'd be out in the front yard with the neighbors, hanging out and watching, what's going on in the neighborhood on the street, or I can go mosey onto the backyard and use the space there. I have lighting in the front, I have lighting in the back. Unfortunately, I don't have any sound. I am a music lover, but I do have a fireplace in the backyard that my kids absolutely love burning firewood. And even though it's gas, they still love burning the wood in the yard. So they collect the sticks and we hang out and we roast marshmallows. But I love the fact that I can turn on all my lights remotely with my phone for security. So if there's some issue that I hear, or there's a bang outside, which usually it's a bird hitting the window. The other day it was an owl. uh, yeah, and it was an owl stuck between my screen door and my door. I don't know how it got in there, but a little small owl about this big, and it scared the living bejesus out of us. So basically, it was flapping its wings, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. Anyways, we had the ability to turn on the lights with our phone from the bedroom. And I'm talking about all the cafe lights, the security lights, the motion sensor lights. I have it all hooked up that way. And I'm a do-it-yourselfer, so I've done a lot of it myself. I don't have the higher end systems in the homes, but I do know that the ability is there, and that's what our clients want. They want that ability to get that experience, and it's really to make it easy so you can interact with your children
And, I,
and
and
your
I'm
family.
and I'm guessing we know somebody who can help you fix that sound problem. How about you, Keith? What's the best part of your outdoor
Uh,
experience?
I think the only thing I did right was we have shade and we have audio that sounds really good. The thing that I wish someone had told me, again, going back to Joey's expertise, I wish someone had told me, you're not going to get any breeze the way you built this. You're going to get no airflow, and your furniture is going to be right next to your really, really hot grill. So when you try and eat after you've cooked on your grill and your smoker, you're not going to want to sit there because it's 100 degrees outside and it's 200 degrees by your grill. And also, the place that they designed for my smoker to go is right by the house, and so the smoke actually will like come in through the soffits. So I don't really think I did anything right except for the audio, but it sounds great.
Okay, quick question for all of you. If you now you let we're going to get Joey some audio sorted out. So, what music are you going to listen to outside when you chill out around your fire pit? What's Mike? What's your choice of music?
I'm a big Southern rock and roll fan, so I guess you could say I probably don't chill. I just listen.
You rock it out. What about you, Joey?
Everything, country, western. We listen to rock, new, old. I have kids. They love hip hop. They love. I like classical music, reggae music. So you name it. Dance music, pop music, whatever it may be. I have my
I,
playlist is endless.
as one of my friends would say, you like both types of music, both country and western. So, what about
There's a
you?
difference.
There
There's a
is.
difference. There's the new country, and then there's the western old country, which I grew up with my parents.
What about you,
Uh,
Keith? What are you
I
listening to?
do I do love Texas country when I'm smoking stuff during the day, but for the most part, it's just one Leon Bridges playlist on Pandora, and I let Pandora figure it out for me, and that always seems to be a good experience. So I guess one thing we haven't talked about, but how do you deal with the long-term maintenance of these systems? How do you make sure that they work day in, day out for as long as we can, as long as they can? Joey, start with you.
We train our maintenance crews to be on the lookout for anomalies in the landscape, things that look out of place, things that may have, like trees, they break limbs, they fall, they break equipment, they hit pool equipment, they break pipes, they break irrigation, they break lighting fixtures. I've seen lighting fixtures hanging with the wire from a tree limb that was connected to the light, and that's the only thing holding on to it. So there's some safety there. And what we want to do is just train our guys to make sure they're informing their supervisor, and let them know that there's a problem on the property. We don't want them just to turn a blind eye to it and keep walking. So that's real important as part of maintenance. We don't just mow lawns and we don't just trim bushes. We are completely, we organize behind the garage is what we like to say, or we fill their fire, up with um, their fire holders with wood, basically. But yeah, that's the thing that we look out for. And then we have, like Bravas with you guys, that we say, hey, there's a problem on this job. You need to go call the customer, and get in touch with them.
That is a huge help. Michael, what about Coastal Source? I know your stuff is designed probably to limit maintenance, but talk about that.
Well, sure. We do design the stuff to hold up, and I can proudly say that our products are among the best built, and our slogan is "We defy the elements," and we do a good job of that. But Mother Nature's really strong, and anything that goes outside, I don't care whether it's a table, an outdoor kitchen, a pizza oven, a pergola, or a landscape light, or a stereo speaker, they all need to be maintained. And we actually have suggested maintenance routines for landscape lighting, and it includes something as simple as taking a look at the fixture, seeing is there a leaf that grew in front of the light, which is now blocking the light to the tree. So that would need to be trimmed. Maybe the fixture got knocked by the landscaper, so it needs to be repositioned so that it's shining in the right direction. I know that never happens. Maybe between rainwater and sprinkler water, minerals got on the lens that need to be removed. So these are normal things that we recommend. And, a maintenance package can be at a minimum annually, at a maximum once a month.
So you're called Coastal Source. I've always wanted to ask someone from Coastal Source this question. Is there a difference when you install the stuff by a coast than when you install this inland?
Well, not really with our fixtures, because they were designed to hold up to the coastal elements, which include heat, humidity, and salt. So those are some of the worst things that can happen anywhere. Every once in a while we'll get asked, well, we've got a home in like northern New York and it gets really cold up there. Will the products hold up? Well, we do cold test them as well as heat test them. Heat is a worse enemy of electronics than cold, but our products are designed to hold up well, and typically that's the kind of questions we'll get, where somebody who's living in a cold climate says, well, your Coastal Source, is it going to hold up here? And we design it to hold up in all environments, really.
Well, listen, I think this conversation around landscaping is something we can dig into time and time again. This is probably a perfect time for our customers to sit in their garden or sit on their patio and look around and say, I wonder what we could do better, and we'd love to help them with that. But before we end this, though, we do have our regular question set that we always ask people, so I'm going to impose on both Mike and Joey. So we start talking about home automation and what the one gadget in your home, and I think Joey may have already answered this, but we'll ask him again. What's the one gadget, the one piece of home automation that you think you can't live without? Mike, what would that be for you?
Oh boy, that's a tough one for me. I'd probably have to say that control of my security system is great to be able to do remotely. Everything else I'm used to doing, either by myself or with an automation system. But when I found out I can monitor, control, and change the settings of my security system no matter where I am, that was a big deal to me.
What about you, Joey? What's the one piece of home automation, if you haven't already answered this?
Freaking out the exterminator, opening the garage for him when he's walking up to it.
Good. That's a perfect answer. Okay, the second question is there a job that you've worked on either recently or when you think about some of the best work you've done? Mike, what's the sort of best or the showcase job you think of that?
Well, that's actually a pretty easy one. We did an installation at a very beautiful oceanfront property, and we were working with a landscape architect, and the lighting budget was already established. And the lighting plan was already done. So it was just a question of us supplying the fixtures and doing the cabling. And in our opinion, they could have done a little bit more to enhance the property, because the landscape budget was gigantic and they had beautiful trees, palms, shrubs, just all over the place. We discussed it with a landscape architect, and he said, well, I don't want to deviate from the budget, but after we get it installed, why don't we come out here at night and you can show me what you think we should do. So we did all that, and we went out there, met with a landscape architect at night, went around the property, and pretty much shrub by shrub, tree by tree, scene by scene, we made suggestions about what we would change. It was a substantial increase in the budget, and we had some pictures for the landscape architect to show the client at their next meeting. When they got together, the client said, let's do it. And after the installation, we brought everybody out there together, and the client loved it. So, that was something where more was more, but it was done the right way.
How about you, Joey? What's the dream job you did?
I was actually hands-on, lots of hands-on job. It was a few years ago, 2017, and we had a special project in Houston. It's in the heart of Houston in River Oaks neighborhood, and it was the one of the original homes built, and it was under remodel, and so there was a lot of historical value to the property, and it included everything from tree planting, tree preservation, a very huge push for tree preservation, very well put together plans on how to preserve the tree roots to build driveways, how to install the drainage system, the progress of which we did the project starting in the backyard, working towards the front yard, working with existing conditions, discovering sight lines weren't on center. Uh, for example, the pool in the backyard it wasn't square to the house, although it was perceived to be square. We had to make some adjustments, and we had to have communication with the homeowner to say, "Hey, this isn't square. Um, how do you want to see this when it's built? Do you want this pool to be square with the patio, or do you want the patio to be square with the space?" And so that process was very important to uphold throughout the construction project. It was a lot. I basically had an outdoor office for about 9 months, a laptop on site. It rained. We had to dodge routes. We had to, everything underground is unforeseen, so we don't know what we're going to experience. And it brought up new challenges every day. But the
That's
process was very smooth.
that's great. So listen, the last question from me is, and this one is actually the hard one, which is, what is the piece of home automation technology or the piece of technology that hasn't been invented that you've always said to yourself, if only somebody invented this? Can you think of one of those, Mike?
Yes. Um, It'd be something that my wife can understand, use, and be happy with.
The impossible weekend at once miracles take a bit longer, as someone once told me. What about you, Joey?
Um, so we use AutoCAD, and we have budgets. It would be interesting to see some sort of a collaboration, especially with a lot of the CRM systems out there, to see something that where while you're designing, the project can be pretty much estimated while you're designing in CAD. And I mean, it's on the fly. So if I put in 500 feet of steel edging, it's adding that to the project. If I put in 600 of these plants, it's adding it real time on the screen so I can see the magic number on the screen.
So,
um,
it could be good or it could be frightening, couldn't it? But
and I don't think we're too far off from that, but that would definitely help us in the design process. Really, because the information we put in CAD, we take that, bring it out, and we extrapolate it through the CAD system, and we put it on paper, and then we build our estimates from there. So that just linking the two together to our accounting software would be amazing innovation.
I
What
think
if
that's.
Nigel and I build it? You have to promise you'll buy it.
I don't think you want me building software. I can't guarantee any of that. Listen, it's been a great conversation. I would say to anybody, particularly of our clients or people listening, if you want to know what good sound and lighting is, come give us a call. We can do a coastal source demo. We can get a great landscape architect and designer involved. It really changes the way you live outside, and that changes the way you enjoy your luxury home. So I think it's been a great conversation. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.